You're listening to REIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out REIARadio.com.
I know investing in single-family homes in the Denver market probably better than 99% of people out there, right? Mm-hmm. And I've already learned my lessons in this market. Like, I know what neighborhoods have structural issues. I know like all the little things that most people wouldn't know about, right? Why would I not take the lessons and the hundreds of thousands of dollars of lessons that I've learned in Denver and actually reap the fruits now that I know what I'm doing?
This episode is brought to you by PropStream.com.
PropStream is one of the most trusted real estate data software solutions. PropStream benefits all real estate professionals. You can find properties and contact homeowners on the go with PropStream's mobile app. We offer free academy courses tailored to real estate investors and agents. Take advantage of our live webinar demos to learn the software and scale your real estate business. Visit www.propstream.com and sign up for your 7-day free trial to get more leads and grow your business.
Welcome to REIA Radio, episode 160 with Craig Curelop. Craig, if I'm correct here, you paid off a huge amount of student loan debt fairly recently, right? When did that happen?
Oh man, no, I almost forgot about that, honestly. It was 2019 that I paid all that off.
Okay, so
almost 5 years ago.
2019. Now, was that all in one check? You were just signing it angrily and be like, "Here you go, I'm done." Is that how that happened?
It was probably 3 big checks that kind of
gotcha.
chunked it out. And it was kind of funny because I was expecting some congratulations, you paid out your student, when you paid off your debt. It was the first loan I've ever paid
your
off.
Certificate comes.
Yeah, I get give me some of them confetti and stuff falls when I submit the email. Nothing. Radio silence.
Very anticlimactic.
Yeah, super.
So my follow-up question to this is, how mad were you when you paid that off in 2019 and then in 2020, 2021, the Biden administration came out and said, we're going to eliminate all student loan debt. Were you like, damn it?
Dude, I was pretty, I wasn't upset in that, I feel bad. I don't get upset at other people's success or anything like that. But what I was frustrated about was that debt is it's a mental thing, right? It's, you buy something that you can't afford. Usually that's an investment so that you can pay it back and you're going to make more than that later. If you're unable to pay any debt back, you need to learn the lesson of the struggles and pay it back. You got to work harder. You got to figure it out on how to pay it back. But I think all debt forgiveness, I think it's just I really don't have much empathy for that, if you want my personal honest opinion. Yeah.
Oh man, I was reading through kind of some notes on your background and stuff you've done and your blogs and so forth, and then I saw that popped out at me, and I was trying to think of the timing of when they announced, the student loan debt, and then Ted and I were sitting here, and I'm like, did they actually do that? I don't even know, so I haven't been in school forever, so
real long time.
Shut up.
Yeah.
And
were there
apparently
schools back then?
yeah, I know, right? It was a one-room schoolhouse. But anyway, I just thought that was pretty funny. Now, you have a really interesting background. You worked at Bigger Pockets, which everybody knows and loves here that catches this episode, probably, I would assume. And you did that for what, 3-4 years?
Yeah, almost 3 years.
How did that happen?
So I was living in California prior to working at Bigger Pockets, and I was just devouring their podcasts and their books and became obsessed with the company. And I was I need to get out of this current job that I was in, and I need to get into real estate because I knew I wanted to get into real estate. And so I actually, funny enough, I was trying to move to Florida. I had applied to 249 jobs in one weekend, and they were real estate assistant jobs, making $8 an hour in Florida. I just wanted to get in. And I applied to one job in Denver, which was at Bigger Pockets, this finance role that apparently 26 other people applied for. And somehow I squeaked through the cracks.
You squeaked through.
So, yeah, I'm the lucky guy for sure.
Was Mindy the one that hired you?
Mindy was not the one that hired me, but Mindy became my Denver mom when I moved to Denver. So me and Mindy are pretty tight. I call her my
I think
Denver
she
mom.
would prefer sister, but we'll go with that.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll tag her in this segment to let her know that. No, that's cool. And now, so Denver, Florida, California. You live in Idaho now, right? And it seems like you're really attracted to high cost of living areas.
That's right. Hey, there's a reason why it's high cost of living, right? Because people like to live here.
Yeah. Now you're I understand you're pretty into fitness. You like a lot of outdoor activities and so forth. Is that right?
Yeah. When I was in Colorado, there's these things called 14ers. So I've hiked a whole bunch of those. Getting more into hunting. I'm like about to pass my hunting exam now. Golf. So yeah, I love to be outside doing stuff.
Wait, there's a hunting exam?
There's a hunting exam, dude. You never would have thought, but when you're yielding dangerous weapons, you got to know how to use them. So
I had to go through a class where I can still carry, but I didn't know there was a hunting exam.
Yeah, you have to get it's basically kind of it's been forever since I did, but I remember when I was 14, I was super into hunting. I had a hunting dog, a Brittany Spaniel. It was like pheasant quail dog, and used to go all the time, duck hunting, deer hunting, all that. And you had to get it's like used to be like an orange little permit thing that you had to carry around with you in case you got stopped.
I love going to the shooting range, but I've never gone hunting once.
Well, there you go. Craig's going to have us out to Idaho, and
come up, man. We're gonna hunt in our backyard here.
We'll hunt some of those bighorn sheep up in the mountains. I think. Those cool. Actually, one thing I wanted to ask you too is, and we'll dive in more into the topic of house hacking. But are you tired of being known as that guy? Like, is that something where you're like, oh my god, I'm so much more than a house hacker, or is that you're like owning it?
It doesn't bother me. I think it's good. I like to get first-time investors. It's probably what 95% of first-time investors do is house hack. And I like to see people go from, I want to invest in real estate to I am investing in real estate. So I don't mind being the house hacking guy, but I definitely am more than that. And I'm growing to be more and more. So
when you first decided that was going to be your entry into the investment world of real estate, now maybe describe your first one. How'd that come about, and what was it like actually doing it?
Yeah, so this was back in 2017, I bought my first house hack, and at the time, the only way to house hack was to buy a 2 to 4 unit property, live in one unit, rent out the other units. There was never the co-living type situation, and there was never the Airbnb situation. Like I'm sure there was, but it just wasn't talked about. And so I went in thinking like I need to buy a 2 to 4 unit property. So I moved to Denver to work at Bigger Pockets. And then like a month later, I found a duplex that was an up-down duplex. And I moved into that. And I was pretty determined to live rent-free. And so I bought the place. My mortgage payment was about $2,000. I lived in the bottom, rented out the top for $1,750. So I know you guys probably aren't mathematicians, but that's not living for free. My rent was $1,750. And I was, my mortgage payment was $2,000. So what I did was I Airbnb'd out my bedroom. And I lived, in the living room, like behind this curtain. I made like a makeshift room. And that room was then cash flowing me $1,100 a month. So now I was bringing in about $2,850. My mortgage was $2,000 and I was living for free. But I had an ideal living situation of living behind like a curtain in this cardboard box type thing. Did
you force all the guests to call you the Wizard of Oz?
The man behind the curtain. I should have made it Wizard of Oz theme, but I was way too cheap for that. I didn't have a single, it's funny, Airbnb back then, I didn't have a single picture on the wall. I didn't have a single amenity. My bed in the picture wasn't even made. But I still got $1,100 a month for it. So
you're like, here it is. I'm a slob. Who wants a bedroom here?
Who wants to hang out with me? It's cheap. Yeah.
No, I'm sure you've been probably asked this a million times, but what's a weird situation that's happened? Have you had guests that you're like, why are you sitting naked eating Cheerios on my futon? Or anything like that? What's happened that's been strange?
Nothing. You'd be surprised. Nothing too strange has happened. Like most people are pretty normal. Some people want to talk to you, others don't, and you kind of just like respect those boundaries. The only bad situation I vividly remember was I had a guy move in for 3 months, and he just got a little too comfortable with like bringing people over. He had a dog, all that kind of stuff. It was a really small place, so really there was no business more than 2 people being in that apartment. But sometimes he had like a bunch of people over, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this anymore.
It reminds me of this tenant I have in one of my midterms right now. And every about third day, he reaches out to me. He's like, hey, can you change my code again? And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna start charging $50 every time I have to change your code on your doors. And he's like, I'm like, what's going on? Well, I just had somebody over and they just seem a little shady. I'm like, why did you give him your door codes? And he's like, because I had to let him in front door. I didn't want to walk all the way downstairs. So he keeps on giving his randoms he meets his door code. and then so I am no joke. In the last 6 months, I've changed this code over 50 times.
Wow.
And I've had to do it twice in a day before. And he's like, oh, I had this girl over and I had to change that code again. I got to change that code again. And then the other day I'm in there and all of a sudden I see people just carrying mounds and mounds of stuff up the stairs. And I'm like, I go, do you guys stay here? Because it's a small apartment building. And they're like, oh yeah, we live in unit 5. And I'm like, unit 5, really? Oh, well, welcome to the unit. And I'm like, hey, so what's going on? Oh, that's my sister. She's gonna stay here just for about 3 or 4 days. And so I was like, okay, we'll find that out. Now it's been 3 weeks. That car is still there.
Oh my God.
Wow. That is a weird situation.
Talk about getting real comfortable.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay.
Now, okay, so first house hack, you got that done. Now, did you do so you got a conventional mortgage or maybe like an FHA one? Like how did the mechanics of that work?
Yeah, the only way to do it back then was an FHA loan, right? I mean, there was just a lot less information about house hacking out there. And so I got an FHA loan because I thought that's the only thing you could do. So yeah, 3.5% down.
3.5% down, and then you were able to make money. You figured out a way to not just do a long-term lease like most people would probably think of, but you kind of like hack the hack and got some additional income by doing short-term stays. Yeah, really, really smart move. So that worked pretty well. Obviously, it looks like you've done this a few times, right? Like how many house hacks have you actually done now?
We're up to 9, technically 8 or 9. But we're done. We're not doing it anymore. But yeah. I mean, it was an amazing way to get started. I was young. I like to still think I am young, but I was 24 when I bought my first one, and so I was like, "There's no reason I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not married. I'm single. I spend next to nothing. I need about 100 square feet to live. Like, why not?"
So your parents and friends obviously knew you're frugal,
Mhm.
but I mean, because you got to be frugal to be able to do this, right? But like, what kind of response were you getting from them? Like, how much shit are they giving you during this whole process?
My parents are very supportive. They understood the whole time. They got that it was just a temporary thing. And it was for a bigger.
Anything.
No, my grandfather is a little more old school, and he like called me miserly and just thought I was cheap and all that kind of stuff. And I think now he understands. But yeah, and my friends were kind of thought I was crazy, right? I mean, I was making decent money at the time. I was probably making like $80,000 a year, and I definitely could have afforded to live better, but that wasn't the point, right? I was trying to live like no one else now, so I could live like no one else later. That famous Dave Ramsey quote.
Ramsey there.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, what can I do? And then I had the foresight too to know that this is going to be part of my story that's going to be entertaining and what people are going to remember. So I might as well make it crazy. It's only a year, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, how long into that experiment of house hacking was it before you decided you want to start maybe putting this into a book? Did somebody else give you that idea because you had done it and they're like, that's a brilliant idea, or was this something you were marinating on for a while?
So I wanted to write a book on house hacking pretty much after my second one, because the second one I did a lot. I did it in a way that more people would be down to do it, which is just the code, like the rent by the room type thing. And so I was working at Bigger Pockets at the time. I was writing for their blog for free. And after probably about 40 or 50 blog posts, I got a call from Scott and asked if I wanted to write the house hacking book. Funny enough, I actually was not the first person that they offered this book to. First, they wanted Brandon to write it. And Brandon at the time was just kind of starting his Open Door Capital, like investing in mobile home parks and all that.
Yep.
And then Scott was going to write it. But then Scott had just got into the CEO role at Bigger Pockets when Josh left. And he kind of had his hands full and just like didn't have the time. And so I was actually third on the list to write the book. And once I had the opportunity, I think there's like obviously a sense of pride you need to put aside and be like, I'm going to write a book for Bigger Pockets. Like, heck yeah, I'm down. So it took me about 3 or 4 months to finish the book. And here we are.
That is so cool. Did your life change much? And if so, how after getting the book out there and getting a little bit more publicity and notoriety for what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean that was a huge. There's probably like two major inflection points in my life, at least as it relates to my real estate career, or just my career. Number one was getting the job at Bigger Pockets, and then number two was writing the book for Bigger Pockets. Writing the book allowed me to go on lots of different podcasts, probably hundreds and hundreds of different podcasts.
Oh, wow.
And from that, I obviously sold a decent amount of books, but honestly, the royalty on the book is not much. But it gave me a lot of publicity. And so people now wanted an investor-friendly realtor, and I had my real estate license at the time. So people wanted an investor-friendly realtor in Denver that knew how to house hack and could actually make properties cash flow in an expensive market like Denver. And so I was getting people just coming to me, wanting me to use them to be their realtor. And I ended up doing over 100 deals my first year as a real estate agent.
Holy cow. That is
Yeah.
insane.
That's nice.
Yeah. Wow. Good for you.
Yeah.
So I assume that pays a little bit better than royalties of 50 cents off of or whatever.
Exactly. That's why it's like, I don't care if I get paid a dime. And I think that's why Alex Hormozi, who I think is a very smart guy, he gives his books out for free or whatever, or like 99 cents or whatever the cheapest amount is, because he realizes like it's not about the money you make from the book. It's about how you can get on podcasts, how you can get your name out there, building that credibility and that clout and being a leader in the space that you can make way more, and it feels way better to give something away.
I feel like because we host a local REIA group here in town, and the last few speakers have been book authors. We just had David Dodgen this week. We had Michael Kramer in last week. He wrote a book with Chris Voss, and these guys are just giving books away, and they're like I don't care. I just want to get my content out there, and then the more people love, like, and trust me, the more business I'm going to do. So, we hear that more than I can ever imagine. I'm like, dude, you could sell these and sign them and make a ton of money at the events. They're like, no, not at all. I would never do that.
Yeah, it's almost like it's more of a personal brand building, rung on the ladder, I think, and then it leads to more opportunities. It is what it seems like after interviewing, so many of these book authors.
Sarah Weaver did sell her books at our event.
Yeah. That's funny. Okay, you have done multiple house hacks, and sounds like your agent business, you pretty much dove in head first into that out of necessity because of all these people hunting you down after your notoriety. Are you still doing investing? I know you mentioned that house hacking isn't your jam necessarily anymore. I assume that's because of age and family and stuff like that. Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, I got married, all that kind of stuff. I did, in fact, I had a lot of comments saying that I would never get married or never find a girl because I was living with other people or living, behind the curtain. But I'm very happy, married for almost 3 years. So to all you guys out there,
Nice.
But
took his tongue out, everybody.
Yeah. I haven't stuck my tongue out anybody in a while, so that felt kind of good. But so now what I'm doing is there's kind of two things I'm doing. Number one, I'm still investing in real estate. I bought 3 properties this year, and it's not like the main thing, but it's something that I am continuing to do is buy real estate, and I like to buy right now because interest rates are really high, and usually people are saying the opposite, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it.
Yeah. And so this is my thought. I think you gotta zig when everybody else zags, right? Like you gotta do the opposite of what everybody else is thinking. And I think you're going to get really wealthy from that. And so I've been trying to buy more and more this year because there's like no competition out there. We're getting houses way under asking. We're getting whatever we want on inspection. We're getting a lot of stuff in our way. And so once these rates go down, and I don't know that they'll go down to 2 or 3% again, but they sure as heck might go down to 4 or 5. We're going to be cash flowing like crazy on these properties, and we'll have a whole bunch of appreciation at the same time, which is why I love investing in high cost of living areas, is because you get cash flow if you know how to make them work and appreciation. And so that's what we've been able to do.
I would assume the common objection or argument to that would be, but the interest rates are so much higher and so forth. And do you just kind of look at that as that's my opportunity cost for being able to get more of a reduction in price, which would offset it anyway, right? Because if you have a lower interest rate, you have to pay more because there's more demand because of the lower interest rates. and then it's kind of an inverse correlation there, right? Is that kind of a good way to look at it?
It's a great way to look at it. Yeah, I mean, if you can get $20,000 or $30,000 off, that's probably 3 or 4 years of interest that you're going to be paying, increase. But again, that's just temporary, right? Like it's all about the temporary pain for the long-term gain, and that's what these high interest rate environments are. So if you can afford something, go do it. And if you're renting and you're waiting for interest rates to drop, that to me is like the dumbest thing I ever heard, because like you're paying 100% interest when you rent. You're complaining about 7% right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just get out there and buy something.
Yeah, because then, like we haven't talked about this part of it too, but then you factor in, my interest rate's higher, but then part of that's going toward principal, right? So you get the equity build up from, the pay down of the loan balance. You get the tax benefits of it. You get, sounds like, cash flow if you're able to make this work with house hacking. And, those benefits of real estate, forced appreciation and so forth. What now the 3 properties that you bought this year, are you still operating in kind of the single family asset class? Do you have any other types of investments outside of singles?
The 3 that I bought this year have all been single families.
Gotcha.
And I've grappled with this a lot because a lot of my friends have graduated into commercial and doing, bigger stuff. And it's really easy to feel left behind or not challenged. But I also got a piece of advice from a friend and mentor of mine that was like, I know investing in single family homes in the Denver market probably better than 99% of people out there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already learned my lessons in this market. Like I know what neighborhoods have structural issues. I know like all the little things that most people wouldn't know about, right? Why would I not take the lessons and the hundreds of thousands of dollars of lessons that I've learned in Denver and actually like reap the fruits now that I know what I'm doing? And so I'm a big fan of like, you got to put your pride aside and just do what works for you and your family. And so right now, I'm buying single 1 to 4 unit properties in Denver. I'm partnering with people that are house hacking. Like, so a lot of people come to me and they want a house hack and they maybe don't have enough money for the down payment, or they want some mentorship on like what rehab I should do, or how do I fill these rooms or whatever. And so I'll actually partner with somebody. And we've been doing this honestly all around the country, so that I can help them with the down payment as well as be their mentor, like really handhold them to help them actually like have a successful house hack.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost eliminates all the risk for them.
With all the levels, I mean, when you look at what you're doing, you said you only got 2 or 3 houses, but my understanding is at one point you had 13 different income streams coming in. So you have money coming in from many other sources. Is that correct? Not just real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously we've got the real estate agent team. I'm still in production a little bit myself. Mm-hmm. The rental properties, you got, the book, which again is minuscule, but it's something. And then of course, like other random investments like stocks or whatever.
You're not completely, independent just on real estate is what I'm getting at. So if you get
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 properties, you're just adding to that one of many revenue streams. I get that. We're all in the same boat there.
Yeah. Now, just to put a finer point on this, the 8 or 9 times you've done house hacking, did you hang on to all of those, or did you kind of like sell and then trade up or trade across into something else?
I just sold one.
Gotcha.
And because I bought in the area that had structural issues. So, it just kept being a pain in the butt property, and I just had to sell it.
Was it settlement or bowing walls, or what were you dealing with?
Dude,
Ted used to work for a foundation company, so he geeks out.
Everything, man. You'd probably have fun if I could pull up these videos quickly, but my contractor could literally fit his whole forearm into the crack in the wall.
Ooh.
And it was running up the whole side. It was bowing in. There was I think over $180,000 to $200,000 of structural damage to the house. Yeah, it was not fun.
And did that happen after you owned it, or did you buy it like that?
Well, I bought it like that, but I didn't find out until after I owned it.
You learned a
Because
lot.
the prior owner covered it all with drywall, so I didn't see it.
Now, if you can prove that they knew about it and hid it, then you can go back after them for up to 7 years, I believe.
So I did.
Okay.
And the crazy thing is he did pay me out for like $80,000 of it.
Oh, nice.
And my lawyer said that it actually wasn't necessarily, he could have gotten away because he was an investor. He never stepped foot in the property. So he could have claimed that he didn't know. And then I would have to go after the contractor who was broke, from my understanding. So yeah, I got really lucky on that one too.
So I mean, it was shady, but he did come out and make it right to a point.
He did come out and make it right to a point. I don't think I was whole from it, but again, he could have done nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. So a future reference for people listening to this, and this is a good real estate conversation. Check those seller property disclosure statements. They're vital. They have to fill those out, and a lot of times you'll get working with an investor and they put don't know on unknown or don't know on everything. But if you can prove that it was concealed, then you have a potential lawsuit that you can go after, because they can't hide it. And if you have proof of a remodel, then you got some leverage to go off. Would you agree with that, Craig, or anything you want to add to that?
Nope, I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Well, let's kind of shift over into your agent business. Now, sounds like you just hit the ground running right off the bat with 100+ deals your first year. What's the trajectory been like for the agent side of your business since you started as a salesperson? Now it sounds like you're running multiple, city agent teams. How was it shifting from an individual producer to somebody that had to manage people like herding cats?
That was difficult because it was really hard because I was pretty good at it. And when I got other people and sent them my clients that I know would convert, they wouldn't convert them. And so I went probably for like 6 to 8 months. I went back and forth to like giving people away to my agents, taking it back to myself, giving people away and taking it back to myself. Mm-hmm. And now I've kind of learned my lesson is that, hey, I need to like put them through a training. I need to get them exactly as knowledgeable as me. There's just gobs of lessons I've learned. And there's, I built this real estate team in the most frothy, easiest market to build a real estate team in, right? 2020, 2021, 2022. Things were very easy.
They could be effing off and still be making money.
Yeah, you just need a house, right? Yeah. Like it'll sell.
Yeah, like that's pretty much what it was. And because we were the leaders in the investor-friendly space in Denver, it was even easier. And so where we realized we had a lot of holes in our business was in 2023, right? When things started tightening up.
Can you dig into that a little bit? Like what happened? Because definitely the real estate world kind of hit the brakes when interest rates started going up like crazy. How did that affect you as the owner broker of multiple locations?
Yeah, I was pretty stressed. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. Like I was, I was overstaffed. I think I had like 4 or 5 people at the time. All of them were doing about a third of a full-time person's work, right? And so my monthly burn was probably like double or triple of what it needed to be. But it was fine when things were going good. I was still making a ton. But once things stopped, I realized like I need to let these people go. So I let everybody go except one person who I still hold to the day, and it's been probably the best decision I ever made. That was like the biggest thing. The second thing is I realized that my agents actually don't know how to produce. I was producing everything for them and they were just getting free handouts and taking 50%. Right. And of course they would take that. And I didn't even have a good contracts where like, if they went away and took the people that I've given them, that they would still owe us money in return. Right. Cause those were our leads. Right. And so I just had like gaping holes. Like, they always have that analogy of the leaky bucket.
Yep.
I had a massive hole, like a donut-sized hole in the middle of that bucket at the bottom. Like, you carry it from one side of the yard to the other thing is empty. And so I had to really, really, really plug some things up. Got our agents into this whole new program. Now they're ramping up. I actually got into the residential side as well. So we still work a lot with investors, but we have a residential arm as well. And so when someone comes into our company, they're working on the residential side first, just because it's a little bit easier. And then once they've done a few deals and can understand how transactions work, and they need to have an investment themselves, then they can start working with our investors. And so there's definitely more of a process now.
As an individual producer, like, so you have your customers are going to be either retail buyers, retail sellers, investor buyers, investor sellers. Of those 4 categories, and maybe I'm missing some, but if you could only pick one, gun to your head, what would you pick to work with and why?
Investor buyers.
Okay. Why is that?
Because they buy many,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not super emotionally tied to it. However, can I dig down one level deeper?
Yeah, please.
I'm gonna say house hackers. House hackers are my absolute favorite to work with, because the problem with investors is people think they're investors, but they're not really, and so they're just kicking the tires, right? They say that they're super patient and they're not in a rush, but that actually just means that they're too scared to make a move, almost 90% of the time. And so if you're waiting for the deal of the century, you're never going to get it, right? If you want the deal of the century, you're not going to get it from a real estate agent, right? Like I'll be straight, like maybe, but most likely if you want the deal of the century, you're going to have to go to a wholesaler, and you're going to have to pay for it cash, and you're going to have to go in with no inspection, and you're going to have, you're going to have a lot more risk. So, and I don't think someone that's a newer investor should do that. I think when you're experienced and you can look at a house and understand how much work it needs to be done to it, go for it. But other than that, I think it's important to just buy something rather than trying to wait for the best deal.
That is really, I would say, an interesting way to put that. I didn't really think about it that way, where they say they're patient, and that a lot of times equals they're just afraid, right?
Almost every time I can.
Yeah, that's pretty insightful, really, though. But I'm sure you've seen that over and over again with people that have wasted your time on. You're like, hey, here's a deal, and then they're like, yeah, no, I'll wait for the next one, and then you send that to them. Same thing. It's like people who go to real estate seminars and get sold the, all the boot camp and then the mastermind, and before you know it, they've spent $100,000 on stuff they could find on Bigger Pockets or going to one of your blogs. And they never take action. And then those are the ones that end up suing the people that were the education people, because, they weren't able to find a deal or whatever. It just seems like there's always someone else to blame for indecisiveness.
You kind of were asking that question about investor sellers, investor buyers, so on. And my take on that is, when you're working with a non-investor person, you're just walking houses, and the colors matter and everything, right? Well, investors don't look at that, right? Your investor buyers are really easy, because you a lot of times you can just do a video call with them and say, hey, here's this, and by the way, here's the numbers. Everything is onto the numbers, and they'll buy. Right now, I have more investor sellers I've ever had in my life in the last 6 months or less, last 3 months, I should say. And when you work with them, it's their property now is worth as much as it is for a non-investor buyer, but they still have tenants in there, so you have to say, hey, well, it's not the property value, it's based on the tenants, right? And so it gets a little bit more difficult, because you got to bring them down. You got to bring them down a notch. But then it's also you got to chase down leases, you got to chase down keys, you got to get access to the properties, and then you got the fun part where it's, I got a lead, and they said they're just going to go ahead and buy the house. So I got a huge package I'm working with right now, and it's like, I'm prospecting on probably 3 buyers for this 40 house package. But then the client's like, I know he's listening to this too, so there you go. But he's like, hey, but I also have these 2 other buyers. So he's like, so then you're like, how much time do I should I spend on prospecting this with these potential clients? Because I could spend the next couple weeks in these.
Boy, that's a lot of work. 40 houses. I mean, they're all over the place too. Like, you got to drive. It's not like a 40-unit apartment building, right? But
then your client, which I understand because I'm an investor too, but that client could say, hey, I got a buyer that's going to buy it off now, and it's not through your lead. And then you're just out of the money and out of the time, and you now spent weeks, if not months, on putting something like that together. So
that's the downside.
So investor sellers can be very, very difficult if you don't manage it properly.
Yeah.
And the more and more I learn on that side, because I've never been dropped, you guys set up some really proper expectations right up front with it.
That's actually a good point. Because as a seller recently myself of a multifamily property, I know quite a few people just from the podcast and the meetups and all that. And I posted something out there, and knowing full well I was listing this, I was just trying to get some additional traction on it. And I had a bunch of people hitting me up, and then my listing agent was like, hey, like, I have people too, so it is kind of weird. I didn't really think about it that way. You got to keep that in mind, because if your agent you're burning your agent out on a package, and then they don't get compensated at all because it's on contingency. I didn't really think about it that way.
The question keep helping you.
Yeah.
I have a client that's out there, and I've been helping this guy for years, and great guy. But every about 3, 4, 5 months, he wants to sell the properties. I go through, analyze all the properties, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, thanks for analyzing them. I'm just going to go ahead and hold off, or I'm going to go ahead and remodel and hold them. And this has probably happened 8 or 9 times now over the years, and it's a lot of time. And so investor sellers, I would say, is on the more difficult side of it, and investor buyers are the funnest. So
yeah, I would if you needed me to rank them, I would probably say investor buyers, residential sellers, residential buyers, investor sellers.
Oh,
Like,
okay. All right. I like this, actually. We've never really asked this question this way before. But
unless your investor seller is willing to vacate that property and let you put it out.
Unless they're down to vacate it, because tenants are tough. I do have a couple investor sellers now, and like they just let the leases expire, the tenants are moved out, and now it's way easier to sell it.
That's a whole new world.
It's and so that's fine. And I do like the investor seller in the framework of they're not emotionally attached to the property. So if they get a low ball offer, they're just like, yeah, whatever, I just want it off my books, right? They're not like, oh, but grandma, raised her little kids in this house, and that's worth something. It's like, no, it's
not to anybody but you,
yeah, to you, yes, but not to anybody else.
But your investor, is less attached, which does it helps so much more.
Yeah,
that's true. Now, Ted and I were chatting for a second before you came on about. I thought it'd be interesting because I don't think we've ever really dug into this before. But are you still using? Are you aligned with EXP Realty? Mm-hmm. Is that who your brokerage is through? Yes, why did you choose them, and how is it better, or maybe what are the pros and cons of going that route versus a traditional brokerage or independent?
Yeah, so a couple of reasons for me, and funny enough, it wasn't the whole downline revenue share thing, right? Number one for me is that I saw a way that I could actually get all of my commission back. So by doing, I think it was 28 deals in the Denver market, I was able to get 100% of the $16,000 cap that I paid back to EXP. And so I was like, that sounds interesting, right? Every other brokerage, there's a cap. I think Keller Williams was like 24 or something. There was always a cap that I would not get back. And so that was interesting. So I thought that I could actually make way more with EXP. That was number one. Number two is that they're the only cloud-based brokerage at the time of me joining. And so it makes it infinitely easier for me to expand to different cities. All I need to do to expand in a different city is find an agent that's willing to partner with me, that's licensed in that, state, that's licensed in that state. And we're now able to expand to that state. We don't need a hard office in that state. We don't need to do any of that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't think about that, but yeah, you would just need basically somebody could work remotely. It makes it a lot easier than having a brick and mortar location in San Diego and Idaho and Denver. Right. So
exactly.
That'd be expensive. And yeah, that'd be really expensive actually.
The cool thing about what you can do too is a lot of people don't know is as an agent broker, and you're getting the leads from your house all around the country. These leads come in. You probably have referral programs worked with agents from in every city around the country, and then you're still going to get paid referrals on all those leads that you're giving in, even where you don't have a brick and mortar location or a team. For sure.
Yeah, we'll always get that, that 25%, of course. And then there's also a cool thing where like I was able to purchase the stock at a 10% discount. So I was able to take like 5% of my commission and purchase the stock at a 10% discount. And so like you're automatically getting an extra 10%. That's like a 10% raise every time you close a deal. I guess not 10% totally, but like whatever, 10% on the 5%. But still, it's like, that's automatic. I made a mistake and didn't sell it when it was at its peak after multiple people told me to. But, I could have, and it would have made a lot. And I still in the positive from that pretty big time. But that was kind of a game changer too.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, why do you think that a lot of people don't end up going and getting their broker's license? They just end up, sticking with a real estate individual contributor, salesperson type role. Like, I know there's your personal viewpoint on it, but based on everything you've seen and the people what's your take on it?
Running a real estate team is like insanely hard. It is so hard.
It's because
because you're trying to get people you're usually the team leader is a go-getter. They'll do anything it takes. They'll call anybody. They'll knock any door. They'll do anything, right? But a lot of the times you probably only have maybe 10% of your agents that if you're lucky, that will feel the same way. And so in a group of 20 agents, you might have 2 that are like, yeah, I'll call anybody. I'll text anybody. I just want to succeed in this. And then you're watching the remaining 90% just fail. And they're failing because they're just not doing what you told them to do. I'm just like, you joined our team so that we could tell you what to do. You do it, then you become successful. And by the way, look at all the people that are doing what we told them to do, and they're extremely successful. But you're not. Why? And it's like, there's like a disconnect. And I still to this day don't understand why, but that it's frustrating. And it's not like, when you're an agent, if you have a bad employee, you can fire them. With an agent, I mean, you can let them go, but it doesn't really hurt you. And if they do a couple of deals, it's okay. So we tend to just kind of let them do their thing.
Okay, I didn't really think about it that way because they're working on straight commission, so it's kind of like what. But yeah, you always have dead weight, or at least people that aren't performing as well as the 80-20 rule basically is what we're talking about here. How have your questions, like when you're interviewing or talking with a prospective new agent to join your team, maybe you mentioned you implemented a lot more extensive training in the front end. How do you suss out whether somebody's going to be a high performer or somebody that's just chilling on and not making any money?
Yeah, so a big thing that we did this year was we partnered with this company called Place with Ben Kinney and Chris Suarez, and maybe you've heard of them. Ted,
No,
you have? No? Okay. So Place is like it was started by this guy Ben Kinney, who's the #1 realtor in like the whole United States, and Chris Suarez, who I believe was #2. And they decided to basically build this backbone for real estate teams, and for like the top 1% of real estate teams. So in order to qualify, you got to be like a top performing team, and then they're going to make you 100 times better. And so with that, we got their new launch program. And so it's basically like a 3-month boot camp where our agents are learning how to have the best possible day, how to do all the prospecting needed, right? How to do the best open house, how to do all this good stuff, right? And if they make it through this 90-day and they do everything in that program, that's when we start to give them leads. That's when we start to actually pour time into them. And sure enough, pretty much everyone on our team who has actually gone through it and done it, they've got like 5, they've got 2 or 3 deals already closed in their first 2 months being a real estate agent, or they've got like 5 to 7 people in the hopper with listing agreements signed and ERV signed. Like there's movement and motion happening. Those people that flounder or don't do it or are afraid to call their friends. I can't tell you how many people are afraid to call their friends, like their sphere. I'm just like, those are the most fun people to call. You're going in the car, call someone you haven't think of a friend and call them that you haven't talked to in a while, and like catch up and then see where they're living, see what they're planning on moving.
Have a conversation.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying. Just call them and have a conversation.
Yeah,
and then in that conversation, just say, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm up to," and then make it fun, right?
Yeah, look, you don't need to make it salesy. You just like talk to your friend. They're your friend, Yeah. So, So going through that program, a new agent on our team should be closing 3 deals in the first 3 months and easily 12 deals in their first year if they go through the process. And we can get them up to like 24 to even 50 in the second year.
I tell you what, if I was on the brokerage side, if I was wanting to hang my own shingle, I had spent a couple of years as a residential agent or commercial or whatever, and I wanted to start a brokerage, and I tuned into this podcast and listened to what you just said. Can you imagine how much of a time saver this would be for people that are just like trying to figure out how do I put training together for a new agent, and they're just trying to, popsicle sticks and Band-Aids to try and come up with a manual to get them. I mean, this was, you just kind of mentioned it in passing, but I mean, I would think this is a huge tip for somebody looking to do this.
My tip is quit.
It's hard. Yeah. I'll say one thing too. In my decision in making a team, I had another mentor of mine, and he was a successful real estate agent. He was just getting out of it. And that year I did 100 deals. I made like probably about $1 million. And that was my best year I've ever had to this day. Right. And he was like, look, just do that for like 2 more years and then just be done. And I was like, again, I was a little more prideful at this time. I was like, yeah, but like, where's the challenge in that? That's not being a business owner. I'm going to be like a slave to my work. I want to build a team. I want to go travel. I want to go do all this fun stuff. So I didn't listen to him, and I built a team. I made a fraction, still good money, right? But like a fraction of that. And so for a while there, especially in 2023, when things were hitting the fan and I had that massive leaky bucket, I was like, I should have listened to that guy. But things, but we've kind of righted the ship and things are feeling really good. And we've got a really good trajectory now.
That's good. Yeah, I it seems like you mentioned early on when you were talking about real estate investing and getting started and chasing the next thing, or maybe a self-imposed feeling that you have to level up and do what other people are doing, like getting into commercial or a different asset class that isn't maybe your wheelhouse. There's something really to be said for, sticking with tried and true things that work, even if you think that it's not the end all be all and there's something better. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. It's just hard to put the governor on yourself when you're a go-getter and you're always wanting to do bigger and more challenging things, right?
Totally. Yeah. It's so easy. I've gone down the path of like researching self-storage and multifamily and all that stuff. And I just like keep going back to, why don't I just do it? Like, I know this makes money. Like if I could tell you that, hey, I can buy you a property that'll cash flow $1,000 a month in Denver, would you buy it?
Yeah, I would.
Right. So it's like, why not just keep doing that? Like, we're still getting that even in today's market and today's interest rates. And so because we've gotten really good with this co-living strategy where we buy single family homes, rent it by the room, we can get like 150 to 160% of market rate on rent, and the properties still cash flow really nicely. And like, this is why I love high cost of living areas, and I'm getting appreciation, right? Like my first property in 2017 has about $450,000 of equity and cash flows me $1,000, over $1,000 a month. And that was a single in 2017. It was an okay deal. My mentor said he would pass on it. Right. And so it's like, you just got to buy something, make it cash flow now, a little bit now. And then in like 5 or 6 years, it'll be totally fine and everything will be great.
Yeah, zooming out to, on a longer time frame. I mean, real estate's so forgiving compared to a lot of other asset classes or investment possibilities. So,
Craig, if you never got into real estate, what do you think you would have done?
Well, I don't know. Might not be.
Firefighter, obviously. Look at the mustache.
Yeah. This is. I would probably be a dentist.
Really?
Which is random.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know why. I love the dentist. I think I'm like probably one of very few people that love the dentist. I look forward to the dentist appointment every single 6 months, and I don't know. I just love it. So I think I would hate dental school because I don't like school, but I think I'd like to be a dentist. Yeah. I feel like the guy from
I've watched a lot of YouTube videos on this. I got it. All right.
Yeah. Trust me.
Degree.
Yeah.
But I have this. That'd be hilarious.
My degree. Trust me, bro.
Yeah. Bro University.
What would Grandpa approve that more, being a dentist?
I'm sure Grandpa would approve that. I'm sure my lender would be happy that I was a dentist.
Oh yeah.
Of course they would.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, listen, we have one section that we kind of alluded to before we hit record today, where we talk about something that didn't go how you'd like. We've talked about some of the struggles along the way here, but do you have something that we might mention in our segment we call
Failing Forward?
This Failing Forward is brought to you by Magic Door.
Magic Door is the AI-powered property management platform designed to handle everything from the rent cycle to the vacancy and maintenance cycles. During the rent cycle, Magic Door collects rent, sends automatic reminders, deducts management fees, and distributes payments to owners. In the vacancy cycle, Magic Door streamlines listings, tenant applications, seamless multi-language communication, screening tenants, and converting applications into leases with one click. And for the maintenance cycle, Magic Door's AI handles everything, asking tenants key questions, assigning tasks to vendors, and scheduling repairs automatically without you getting involved. With no hidden fees, no onboarding costs, and seamless AI-powered automation, Magic Door takes care of the entire property management lifecycle so you can focus on what matters most.
Something you learned from a mistake or mistakes you made, and how it's contributed to your growth and trajectory right now. Got anything in mind?
There's been quite a few. The biggest one that I was actually on the Bigger Pockets podcast talking about this maybe a month or two ago, but I had a horrible deal that I did in Jacksonville, Florida. This was 2018, so I had bought 2 properties at this time, and I thought I was, again, like, right, like, be careful of your ego. Like, it really will cost you. Your ego is very expensive. And so David Green just came out with a book, the long distance real estate investing. And I was like, yeah, but do this. I raised money from my cousin to buy this property in Jacksonville, Florida. And it was like 38 grand. So I was like, how do you lose money on something when you just buy it for 38 grand? Well, you buy something where there's termites rotting through, eating through your roof rafters. And there's, massive electrical issues and plumbing issues and everything you can possibly imagine wrong with a house. And those costs add up big time. And then you throw COVID in the middle of it too, where things couldn't get delivered and people were afraid to go out of their house and all that. And government agencies were like basically shut down. And it just results in a lot of poorness. And it all stems down to, I only talked to one realtor the whole time. And I should have interviewed multiple. I should have ran that deal by a couple of different people. And I should have just done a lot more diligence instead of just blindly trusting the realtor who, was selling me a $38,000 house. So she made nothing, basically nothing on that deal. So she didn't care.
You, at that time, you could have bought an Omaha house and not dealt with a lot of that stuff.
I wish I did, honestly. It's a lot closer to Denver than Jacksonville, Florida is. So
my 2020 COVID house cost me $11,000.
I had, you were talking about the lack of due diligence, or you could have paid more attention to it. Maybe sussed out some of the things that were problems. But I was I bought a house pretty early on into my real estate investing. This is probably 17, 18 years ago. And it was a $27,000 house, and it looks like you would expect. Everything was completely trashed on the inside. The siding was bad, windows were bad, roof was bad, all of it. It was basically a shell by the time I got it and demoed it. And I'm going through this place, and I'm in the living room. There was in the ceiling, this was like a slab house, so they just a slab on grade, no basement, just 1,000 square feet, very simple. But the ceiling had this huge, probably 6 foot diameter, like stain on it, really dark stain. And I'm like, well, the roof probably shot. And then, but come to find out, it wasn't the roof. The decking was okay. That part of the roof wasn't leaking. I'm dead
body up there.
Will you please stop stealing my thunder here? No, it wasn't a bat. What it was a colony of mice and rats that built a huge nest in the insulation that was right above this. Right.
Really?
Now, here's the crazy part. So we pulled down the contractor pulled down the ceiling. It's always gross when you do this anyway. If you pull down ceiling drywall, because all of the insulation comes down, it's everywhere. You're breathing stuff in. If you don't, you got to have a whatever mask on if you're smart. I wasn't smart. So we pull this down, right? And I'm like, oh my God, that is the most mice and rats and stuff I've ever seen. And it was crazy. So then we get over into what's now the laundry room area. It's kind of right off the kitchen. And they're pulling the drywall there too, because it's just disgusting. They pull a drywall, and there is a gigantic snake that had crawled in through a gap in the siding, through that, and was in between the siding and the drywall in the framing of the house. And what it was doing, it was huge. We're in the Midwest. This isn't like we're in the desert, right, where there's a lot of huge reptiles.
It's a bull snake.
It was so big, the biggest one I've ever seen around here in person. And what was happening was that snake was cruising up the rafters into the attic and was eating the mice and rats that were up there. So it was just getting fat and happy off of this disgusting house.
He was at a Vegas buffet.
Oh my God.
Awesome. Yeah.
My contractors were freaking out. When they saw the mice and rats in the first place, they were like, oh my God, they were kind of skeeved out, and then they see the snake, and one of them was like, nope, I'm out. You let me know when all the new drywall's up and I'll be back later. That's just, oh my God. This is one of the second or third house I ever bought. And I just thought that was how it was. That's normal. Snakes, rats, whatever.
That's crazy. What's funny is I think it's really funny when you have these big, scary kind of looking men. Oftentimes their contractors are blue collar workers.
Yes.
And then they're afraid of mice or something so little, or they're afraid of the dark or whatever. I think that's always so funny.
Craig, have you had an infested house before?
Well, we had the termites there. I don't think I've ever had an infested house like what you're talking about. We've had our fair share of problems with pests, but nothing to the point where this is kind of weird. But I'll say that I'm not afraid of like, mice. I don't think I'm really afraid of snakes. But if there's like a big snake or there's a lot of snakes or a lot of something, then I'm afraid of them. At my own house growing up, we one time had an infestation of ladybugs. And so our whole door, I thought my parents painted the door. Like it was all covered with ladybugs. And I was like, I was scared of that.
Yeah.
The ladybugs are harmless. But when there's like a lot of ladybugs, I don't know why. I'm like, that's kind of scary that there's so many of them.
Oh man, there's a house there's a house I grew up in, and so it's the original farmhouse for this area. And here in Omaha, it's called the Peony Park area.
Yeah, I remember. I think I know where you're going with this.
And so the basement filled up with raw sewage, like 3-4 feet. And we didn't have a lot of money. And so that basement stayed like that. And it was a rental. And it was like that for years. And so we had snakes, mice, rats in there nonstop. And long after we moved out, we come to find out that they're paying the local utility district the whole time. But it was still on the original septic system, which was under the intersection. We lived on a corner. And it wasn't until years later when they found out that that thing was overflowed and filling back into the house.
Oh my gosh!
Man. And it had a massive septic system though, and they had to take out the whole intersection to get this tank out.
Yeah,
that fed into the house. But I remember as a kid growing up. I mean, first couple of years, we just didn't have a lot of money, so it was just a mattress on the floor. And I just remember the mice and the rats just crawling all over you when you're sleeping.
It's like a petting zoo.
And ever since then, I am not a mice fan. I don't like them at all. We had so many mice that my dad would sit in his lawn chair with his pellet gun, and it would shoot him in the corner of the living room, and he would just sit there and shoot the mice that were running around.
That's a fun game
because we had a bird and the seeds would fall down. And they would go after the seeds, and you come home and there would be splats everywhere, and there would be a whole pile of dead mice.
Oh my god!
You need to get a cat. You need to get a cat. Cats are
right. Yeah, we got every kind of animal in there.
Yeah, we had a
I have one more quick funny here, and then we'll head toward our last segment. I'm getting a little better now, but I'm very terrified of wasps, especially those big hornets, the cicada killer ones. Right, I've mentioned this before.
Those will sting you, though.
I will run. That's the rumor, but I've seen their stinger. I'm not risking it. That's all I'm saying.
I love those ones.
Oh, gross!
I hate cicadas more than anything.
So I had an incident when I was a kid. I got stung a whole bunch of times, so I have a good reason for it. But bees, still not a huge fan, but I can handle them a little better, like honeybees. They're not as big of a deal. But so I'm looking through this house. It's a foreclosure, kind of a crap hole, like a lot of them are that I was going through. And I'd go through and I'd go into this bedroom and I would just hear this like low buzzing sound. And it was just, I could not figure out where it was coming from. And I'm like, what is that? What is that buzzing sound? And I'm like, kind of like trying to hold my breath and listen. And finally, I kind of figure out that it's coming from the wall, right? I'm trying to remember how this ended up working out, but I bought it. And again, the buzzing sound and what's this, and I couldn't figure it out. And they were starting to do demo, and they pulled off the drywall in this room. And what had happened was a colony of bees had come and built actual, like there were whole sections of like honeycomb in there. They were living there. It was like a hive. So it was in between the, the 2x4s on the framing. And it was like, there were 3 different little cavities of that too. I mean, it was huge. This was like 6-8 feet across that this whole thing was. I'm just like, let me know when this is gone, because I am not coming back here when this is.
Did you get free honey?
Oh yeah. I mean, I did not show up for it, but all the guys were talking about it because they like get a chunk of the honeycomb or whatever, and I think some of the
that's good, dude. Yeah. Mixed with insulation is even better, but
yeah. Well, this has been great. We have one section remaining in our podcast where we ask the same guests the same questions each week.
Sometimes we mix them up.
Sometimes we throw a curveball in there, but and this section is called the OT with Owen and Ted.
You are in the OT with Owen and Ted, presented by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions, we have trillions with a T to lend. 844-we close, or go online, jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
The first question we have for you, Craig, is and we always ask people what the title of their first book and topic would be, since you already have that knocked down. Sounds like number 2 is still marinating and is going to be coming out at some point here. You want to give maybe a plug for your new book? Tell us what it's about.
Yeah, so my next book that I'm going to be releasing hopefully in the next 6 months is basically how to be an investor-friendly realtor. So if you're a real estate agent listening to this and you want to help investors, this book should help you. And also, if you are an investor and you want to make sure that you have a good real estate agent, you're going to be able to see what the good criteria for someone who's a good agent will be in this book. So,
yeah, amazing. Now, did this one take less or more time than the first one you cranked out?
Way more.
Do you think you're overthinking it? Like you're trying to really hit everything now, and you just didn't know what you were doing the first time around, or what do you think the reason is? Just writer's block?
No, it's not a writer's block thing. I think it's just like a time thing, and it's before I was just so systematic on how to write it, and now it's less in my routine, and so. Yeah, it's not like a writer's block where I don't know what to write. It's just totally me dedicating time to writing the book.
Hey, you want those fat royalty checks coming in every month? You gotta get this on the calendar, buddy.
Yeah, I know, right? I know, I do. Like, I'm pretty good about like scheduling my day with almost everything else, but for some reason, I just keep kicking it to the side. So I just gotta get it done. It's almost done.
Awesome.
Can you tell everybody what the name of your podcast is?
Yeah, our podcast is Invest, the number 2 Fi, so Investify, and we interview everybody. We'll probably try to get you guys on the show, actually, after talking to you. You guys have been fun. And we interview a lot of investors. Many of them are earlier stage investors, and we kind of dive deep into their first couple of deals to understand how they got started. And then if they've got more to them than just their first couple of deals, we'll show where you're at today. So it's a fun, pretty easygoing podcast. You should give it a listen.
I'm the more rookie versus Owen here.
Oh, you're not.
I would never have guessed.
No, you are not at all. But yeah, we'll definitely tag that in the show notes too, and check that out. So FI meaning financial independence.
You got it.
Yeah, that's really cool, man.
So you can interview anyone in the world today on Investify. Who's the person you want to interview? Not necessarily, and it doesn't have to be real estate. Who's the person you can interview? And what's one question you want to ask?
Owen and Ted.
No.
Yeah, has anybody said that?
I don't think so.
Oh wow, I'm the only round noser. Only person I would interview today. Who would it be? Dead or alive, or they have to be alive?
Preferably alive.
Alive. Okay. The first person that comes to mind would probably be, I don't know. I guess probably like Elon Musk or something. Just kind of like
Elon comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Honestly, part of me is like.
Did you see his interview on Joe Rogan?
The most recent one, no.
Yeah.
But I feel like I need to listen to it.
Really good. It was like the day before election.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the conversation was. I mean, I got about 15 minutes left in it. I was listening to it on the way here this morning.
Yeah. I mean, I think Elon's a fascinating guy. Like, I honestly, like, part of me is like, I kind of want to interview. I would honestly want to, like, today. I don't want to interview Biden because I think he totally failed the Democratic Party by bailing out so late and only leaving Kamala as like the only option for the Democratic people. Her campaign was like 2 or 3 months and she was running on like one thing. I just, and I'm pretty like bipartisan. Like I've voted for both sides in my life. And so, I just kind of want to understand a little bit more about what happened there and why and all that kind of stuff. So
that would be an interesting interview if he was actually honest about it.
Well,
yeah.
But how much? I mean, let's get real. Like, how coherent is he going to be? Like, how much conversation are you really going to have?
Well, that would be funny too.
And we all know this guy's got tons of secrets. So what is he really going to tell you?
That's true. I guess, yeah. Like, assuming that he'll be honest and he's got nothing to lose at this point.
If you could give him a true serum, I'm sure that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Next question for you. It's later on in your life, and you had just come down with a bad case of the deads. It's your eulogy. Who's going to be walking up to the podium, and what are they going to say about you?
Well, I hope it's my wife. Well, the funny thing is we have this whole thing where it's like she wants to die before me because she doesn't want to grieve, and I'm like the same way. So like, maybe it should be you dying first. So
who's older?
I'm like 2 years older. So
Well, maybe it's a fiery car crash that kills both of you.
yeah. Or we just die peacefully in bed holding hands. Yeah, just kidding. But I guess like all things considered, I hope it's my wife, and I hope she says, like, number one, I'm a man of God. Number two, I'm a family man. Number three, I was a great business person. I didn't do anybody wrong. And so I would hope that it would kind of go in that order. And so, yeah, that's, I guess, like the one thing I can hope for.
Well, that statement is REIA Radio approved. I like it.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a curveball at here. Okay, so this is gonna be a quick little spitfire. I'm gonna call it "Would you rather?"
Oh, fun.
Would you rather buy a house that has a foundation issue or full termites?
Termites.
Would you rather have a tenant in your house that's a hoarder or it is a drug home?
Hoarder.
Would you rather interview on your podcast Scott Trench or Mindy Jensen?
Oh,
you got to make me pick favorites. We have to radio edit this one out.
And tag both of them, by the way.
Probably Scott Trench.
Okay. Would you rather do a podcast interview like this or go do a live presentation in front of a group of people?
A live presentation.
If you can go to only one more real estate meetup for the rest of your life, would it be the next Bigger Pockets event or the 100 Million Mastery Club from Ozzy?
I didn't even know the Hormozy one, but I'd probably go to that one because I've been to Bigger Pockets many times.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, good stuff.
And that's the would you rather.
Controversial, up and down. We love it. Now, you mentioned along the way there that you had you mentioned mentor, whether that's formal or informal. Is there anybody in your life that you look back on and you say that was a really pivotal moment, and I went through a lot of growth, whether it's mindset or business or just life in general, that you maybe want to give a shout out to?
Scott Trench was a mentor for me for a long time when I was working at Bigger Pockets, especially kind of getting through my first few deals. And this other guy, before we joined Place, Courtney Atkinson, helped me out get through that 2023 mess, which I was super. He was just a coach that I paid for, but he was great. And now it's Ben Kinney and Chris Forrest that's helping the real estate agent thing go. And it's funny, like I really didn't start with that many on the real estate agent side. I didn't start with a mentor at all. Like I was working at Bigger Pockets and I was doing 2 deals a month as an agent. And I talked to David Green and I was like, I don't know if I should quit or not. Like, I'm only doing 2 deals a month. I don't really know if that's enough. And he's like, you'd be the best agent on my team if you did 2 deals a month. And I was like, oh, so that's good. Like, I had no idea that was good. I thought people did 100. Like, I just had no idea. So yeah, I think it's, it's important, but sometimes ignorance is bliss too. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's how I live my life. That's my credo. Okay. Well, last question for you, Craig. Are you looking for anything in your business right now? I know you kind of mentioned the ebbs and flows of success within the brokerage world. Are you looking to hire anybody, or are you looking for deals, anything like that? That somebody catching this might know something or someone?
Yeah, we're always looking to add more high producing agents in the team. So if you are an agent out there, and whether you're an investor or not, or even if you're just an aspiring investor, we're always looking to add more people, get you going, making some money being an agent, and then of course get you going on the investment side as well. And if you are, for anyone else in the country, basically, like I'm also doing a lot of partnerships with different people that are looking to house hack and maybe don't feel super comfortable going in at it alone, or need some help with a down payment or something like that. Like I've been helping some people like that too. So
I had on that topic, Craig, I had a note to ask you when you first brought that part up. Is there a range, or like, how do you do the partnerships with people? So if I want a house hack, but I'm like scared to death to do it, and you mentioned you might help with the down payment and also maybe help them through the process and explaining things and mentoring. Like what does that get for you as far as equity, or how does that work?
Yeah, usually, I mean, depending on how much money they need is really the main factor of what will differ with that. But essentially, like it's usually about a 50-50. If they need a little bit more money, then, we'll probably go a little bit more in my favor. If they need a little bit less, it might go a little bit less. But usually we're right around that 50-50 mark on both the profit of the property. So if the property loses money or there's an expense, like you're sharing in that, as well as the gain, equity, and the cash flow.
we've had, this is episode 160. I can't recall anyone that has ever said they approach it that way. So you're slicing off basically partnerships in exchange for down payment. You're not having to do a lot of it sounds like you're helping steer the ship with regards to, thought process and mechanics of it, but you're not having to live in it and deal with, half naked people walking around all the time.
That's a big value that the other person brings, right? And so it's like, hey, can you get this loan at 3 or 5% down? I'll help you with the down payment. So I'm still only putting in 2-3% down. They're putting in. I'd like to have some money, and then we just go together with it.
Yeah, that is really smart, because I was just thinking like other partnerships that I've done where, typically, now granted this might be more commercial versus residential, but typically you're gonna have to put 20-25% down on those deals. That's a big chunk of change, especially when the price points start getting up there. But yeah, talking about 2-3%, something like that, and then you get 50% ownership of that, and you don't have to deal with all the drama. It's really smart. I really like that approach. That's really cool.
That's what the golden nugget you got out of this.
Well, that among others. Yeah. But okay. Last thing for you is how can our listeners support you? And if they like what they're hearing today, is there a good way to reach out with you or to you?
Yeah, the best way is on Instagram, the FI guy. So the FI, like financial independence guy. Mm-hmm. You can hit me up there if you want to check out more about our team. We're the FI team, but I'll answer pretty much all of my messages on Instagram. So just shoot me a DM. As long as you're not a bot, you'll get an answer.
All right. I love it.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for being the way you are, just transparent and open. We really appreciate that. And just being so easy to work with and get on the podcast, man, that means so much. So we really appreciate that. And it just speaks to the type of person that you are. So that's really cool. And if you're listening to this the first time or the 160th time, we'd appreciate a 5-star review on whatever format you're listening to, and a written review, because we like to read those written reviews here on the podcast.
Yeah, we got to put on our readers, but we like reading them.
And with that, Owen Dashner, will you see us out?
On behalf of Aiden Bear, Ted Kosh, and REIA Radio, I'm Owen Dashner, and you've been listening to Craig, the man behind the curtain, Curelop. Signing off.